This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching, and today's video is I need to what? And it's machine piecing versus hand piecing. I just finished my first king size quilt on the sewing machine, quilting it, and it ended up being 100 by 113 inches, and it was really fun. And last year I had bought a kit that I really liked. It was so pretty. And it is also going to be big. It's going to be 87 by 99 inches. And so I had been working on the blocks. There were two different blocks, Block A and Block B. And I thought, this is really going to be another big one. Maybe I'll just take and make it into 2 lap quilts instead. But once I started putting the strips together, the blocks together, and then the strips, it was really pretty. And I thought, okay, here we go again. Let's try one more big quilt, because the other one turned out to be manageable on my machine. When I first started quilting in the 70s, all the magazines that you'd get, they had hand-pieced quilts. And so you'd cut out all these little pieces and you'd sew them together. Well, through time and on up into now, lots of times when you get the magazines, you will find that they have strips that are sewn together and then cut apart, and they really lend themselves to being stitched on the machine. And so keeping that in mind, that's always in the back of my head. And the kits, it's very similar to the magazines. And you can see this is quilt block A, and it's got a large center block and then the strips around the outside. And it lent itself to piecing on the sewing machine. And so I did those, and they went very quickly. And then block B is the star quilt, and this turned out to be something different. The first part was okay, where I had to take the 3 strips of color to make the parts of the star, and I'd sew those together on the machine and then cut them apart. But after I got through with that and started putting the other pieces together, and I wanted the star to look just right, I tried it on the sewing machine and I wasn't pleased with it. So I went back to the old hand stitching, and all of a sudden the blocks just went together. The pieces just fit beautifully. There's a certain stretch that happens when you're sewing by hand, and all of the blocks looked so good. And here you can see why that might be, because block A is very simple, just had several parts that had to be sewn. And this is the back of the block B, and you can see all of the seams. And I'm one of those people that like to open the seams because I like the front of the quilt to lay flat. And then I pressed them really well, and when I turned it over, it looked really good on the front. And I wanted to say that when I started hand stitching, I'd just sit and watch TV, and it'd have these short little runs, and it went really fast, and I didn't have to worry about picking anything out, because the sewing machine, with my help, ran over the spots where they should have stopped. This is the quilt, how far I've gotten it now. I've got the last row ready, and it's got to be sewn on. In addition to that, there's 9 inches of trim that goes around each side, and then it'll be ready to go on the quilt machine, and I'll have a new experience. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with machine piecing versus hand piecing. Enjoy.